The cat's out of the bag, and the Sox are still undefeated in spring training.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with my co-host, NESN's Lauren Willand. Did you like that open?
That was good. That was good. My dog did not like that. She hates cats, but very clever.
Roxy's ears probably went up, and she's just like, wait, cat? But yeah, the Sox had a little bit of a friend on the field in yesterday's game. And it was funny to sort of hear the commentary of Dave O'Brien and Kevin Youkilis. It's going to come nowhere close to, obviously, the memorable pizza sort of situation with Don Orsillo and Jerry Remy, but it semi-reminded me of it with the commentary with also TC as well in there. Almost got his head taken out.
Yeah, it's funny when animals get on the field, whether it's, cats. We've seen cats before in MLB and NFL games, and it's just funny when people react because we don't see it that often. We see it kind of frequently lately, but it's fun. It kind of just adds, some excitement or maybe even some like more personality that you don't get during a baseball game from commentators, and you have to go on the fly. I mean, there is nothing, you can't prepare for that. And no. You gotta go with it. It's like when fans go on the field, and I can't remember who it was, but there was one guy got on the field of a football game, and the commentator was like, "This man is drunk," and there he goes. And it's like the funniest thing. And I'm just like, every time I see like a cat get on the field, I'm like, I wish someone would be like, "That cat is drunk," and there he goes. It would be great.
That's funny, and that's one thing that I noticed at least about that time with the cat is he was flying all over the place. He didn't care where he was. He was jumping up and down. It was also funny to sort of see sort of the fans' reaction, which I sort of tried to put myself in their shoes of it jumps right into the stands and like, wait, is this thing rampant or is it okay? Like, it's gonna attack me.
I know. Well, there's a lot of, I know like NFL arenas have cats to kind of keep rodents at bay and try to keep them, out of the arena. And that's going to be impossible when it's big as they are. But I don't know if MLB stadiums do that, but I don't know, maybe just a cat that got lost and wanted to, maybe just want to take in a baseball game. It's beautiful weather down there. So I don't blame the cat. Want to catch some baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely enjoying that nice weather. I'm very excited. About to fly out down to Fort Myers. Luckily, going to be seeing the Sox on Thursday and Friday. So, I'm going to be making an episode of my experience down there with my good friend Jamie Gatlin. But we saw the Sox continue their winning streak, now 3-0 during spring training. And Triston Casas put on absolute show, 2 for 3, 3 RBIs and a home run. And it seems like he's continuing to look more comfortable by the day, and obviously only spring training, but at the same time, nice to see him starting off on the right foot.
Yeah, and we've said this, right? Like it's important to have a good spring training. We never want to see anybody be bad during spring training, especially someone like Triston Casas, who has a big season ahead of him. He's got a lot of hype around him, and he has a lot to fight for going into this season. So it's really good to see him just kind of get into this groove. He's hitting bombs. He's looking really comfortable at the plate, and hopefully that translates into regular season games. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but it's really good to see him get off to the start, especially too with those reports that came out last year that he may or may not have ruffled feathers with his routine and he had to make some adjustments to his pregame routine. And to see it just right now, it doesn't look like anything is, bothering him or kind of messed up that pregame routine. Still looks pretty good. And then his like little crow pose or whatever after the game, the dude is just unapologetically himself. And I love it. And if he can continue to do what he's doing in spring training into regular season games, be weird, man. Bring the weird.
And that's the other thing too. I think it fits so well with not only this team, but I guess the future of the team as well too. Alex Verdugo obviously always exudes tons of personality and energy. Still with the club under control for the next year or so. Obviously Devers for the next 10 years, and Devers at times like uses his goofiness as well. And so especially with looking at this future core of the Sox, it'd be nice to see, Verdugo, Casas and Devers sort of exude sort of that personality and energy down the line and use it to, make lightness in the clubhouse and make it fun at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, especially after last year, you do want to see the players have fun and kind of just be themselves, but you also want to win games. And right now the Red Sox are doing both. Yes, it's spring training. Yes, these games don't matter, but this is good to see, especially after how last year ended and how this offseason went. There's a lot of unhappy fans, and understandably so. There's a lot of, pessimism going into this season, but to start spring training on this kind of note is definitely encouraging. And now it's March, so regular season games start this month. They have about 4 weeks to go, and let's keep this train rolling. Let's go right to the regular season on a high note.
And even though these wins don't correlate to regular season or help any team sneak into the playoffs or win a World Series, but if the Sox win a grapefruit title, that'd be pretty sick. They did it in 98, 99, and in 2018. And last time they won the Grapefruit League, 2018, had a pretty good season. So not to say that correlates to anything in the regular season, but it'd be nice to see the Sox hoist up a trophy at least once this season. That'd be cool.
It would be. It would be. I mean, like, it means nothing, but it would just be nice to have some sort of, quote unquote championship with the Red Sox. So we'll see. I mean, it's a good start. It's a great start.
Right.
So now it's just a matter of taking that and taking what they've done in the first 3 games. It's only 3 games, but keep that momentum going and keep this kind of, keep the high that you're riding on, especially now with the World Baseball Classic about to start.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep the vibes good. Let's keep the momentum high and keep getting these wins, because at some point they will translate into regular season success. But they have to keep going. They have to keep doing what they've been doing and make sure that, I mean, there's always going to be some sort of issue, right? That whether it's losing streaks or not getting on the same page, but maybe this year it's not just a matter of not letting it get to them and just making sure that they don't end up how 2022 ended up.
Yeah, and that momentum is going to be key, especially with how slow they started last April. And it's so funny. If any other fan of another team was like, listen to this, the Red Sox are hanging their hats high on 3 wins in spring training.
Right.
I'm actually curious. Like, what do they win if they get a Grapefruit League title? Is it like some sort of incentive? There has to be something. I don't even know if they get a trophy or not. But besides that, one guy who we haven't brought up really at all is Greg Allen. Went 3 for 3, two doubles in last night's game. In my mind, I think the outfield is already set in terms of, Rob Refsnyder being the 4th outfielder, obviously, Yoshida, Verdugo, and, Kike and Duvall. But Allen just continues to show that depth really matters, especially going into this season. And he could be potentially that guy that could slot into an outfield position if there's some sort of injury or some sort of issue in the outfield.
Yeah, I mean, we talked dark horse candidates the other day. Could this guy be a dark horse candidate to get in this roster, or is he a first call up if there's an injury that he could take that place? But much like the other players that we've seen, and much like the Red Sox as a whole this spring training, it's nice to see him kind of come out strong and be useful to the Red Sox team, even though it is spring training. This is what you want to see. You want these decisions to be difficult going into the regular season. You want Alex Cora to be like, wow, it's going to be very difficult to leave player A and player B off the roster, rather than being like, oh man, like, I guess I'll take this guy over this guy because his numbers were fairly better, and we'll just go from there.
Completely agree. And, another guy that we brought up in yesterday's episode, and Manuel Valdez, ended up, really showcasing his power in last night's matchup. And it was funny, too, because, the clip starts off, if you see it on Twitter, Uke was sort of comparing his stance to Juan Soto, which is something that, I noticed last year right when they traded over for him. It pretty much looks identical. And right when, a clip that you probably will see on Twitter, Dave O'Brien goes, he is Juan Soto. And then he just hits a bomb like right after he says that. And it's just so funny how well it ended up working out. But, it's nice to see Valdez continuing to impress and showing off that hitting tool throughout spring training so far.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's great. It's great to see. And it's nice to, it's nice to see the any adjustments he made, and to kind of, we knew that there was potential there. And to see it kind of come into play is definitely very encouraging. I'm excited to see what he brings the rest of spring training. I mean, it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope that continues. And like we've said before, Alex Cora may have very difficult decisions to make going into his or trying to construct that 26-man roster, because if all these players keep playing how they are, I don't know how he's going to kind of construct that roster. I don't know if there's going to be a more difficult decision than another. Are there going to be surprises or snubs from the roster? So it's early, but it's a lot of fun to keep our eye on right now.
And I last night, I don't know about you, I loved that broadcast. I've really enjoyed Mike Monaco thus far over the first two games, but it was nice to hear Dave O'Brien and Kevin Youkilis back in the booth together, and it just seemed like things were a lot lighter and a lot more, I don't know, just energetic, loose. Like they were making jokes left and right, and it was just cool to be able to hear sort of that similar or Silo, Remy sort of banter of joking back and forth. Eck and O'Brien did it at the end of last season as well a little bit. But, I'm super excited to have Uke in the booth full season with Dave O'Brien.
Yeah, Uke's been awesome. He started really slow last year with the spring training games, and I was like, oh man, this sounds like he doesn't even want to be here. But when you're calling regular season games and you get more reps and you get more comfortable with the people next to you, he's been really, really good. And I'm excited for that as well. And something that makes him, interesting is he's not too far removed from the game. So, right. younger generations, not to sound like I'm, 80 years old or anything, but it's someone even like my generation who loved watching Youkilis for the last, or for his time with the Red Sox. And it's fun to kind of get his perspective on it. And of course, Monaco, he just brings so much energy. He's so good. Obi is what he is. I think he's great. I think he's a great radio guy. He's great on radio. There'll never be another Eck. There'll never be another, Remy Orsello kind of connection. And that's going to be hard for Red Sox fans because that was so much of what made the broadcast so entertaining. But Uke does a really, really good job. Lou Merloni was amazing. And I'm excited to kind of see how this booth plays out, because I know Obi's been doing this forever, but I would love to see him loosen up a little bit more and maybe getting, the Ukes in there, the Merlonis, and even the Monacos and the younger people like that would maybe help him loosen up. But he is who he is. But the 3-man booth, I love it. I wish Eck would come back. Like I said, there's never be another Eck with all the colorful commentary and everything like that. But Youkilis has been great, and I'm excited for the full season of him as well, and to see kind of what he brings this year as well.
And we've heard him come out of nowhere with some different nicknames. He's one of the main people that mentioned the nickname Fitzy starting off last spring training. Curious to see what other potential nicknames, we hear from him down the line, could turn into permanent nicknames for some of these players. But, one other thing that I thought was really cool during the broadcast is, and I don't know if we're going to see this in the regular season, but Youkilis mentioned that due to the strike violation because of the pitch clock, Jason Varitek actually texted him sort of what, that I guess, what to write down in the scorebook of that sort of violation, obviously, since it's so new. Apparently it's a K with a circle, but I just thought that was so interesting. I'm like, you're texting right now with Jason Varitek in the dugout. I would love to get sort of that immediate commentary from Jason Varitek in the dugout between him and Uke in the regular season in the future.
Yeah, that should be a segment, right? Like
Seriously.
text from Tech. There we go. Perfect. I've named this segment. Let's do it. I think they need to get this in motion. And yeah, that gives a fun inside look. Obviously that's, texts are, private between the parties, but it would just be fun to get that kind of inside look and kind of see what Varitek is seeing, what Youkilis and everyone is kind of, telling him and talking to him through it, and their opinions on everything, because they're right there in the game. They've played it. Tech is witnessing it. So that would be fun. Text with Tech. Let's do it. I'm in.
And I feel like at some point they have to, mess with them a little bit. Like if they're doing a interview with Varitek, like in the middle of the game or something like that, like they've done recently, Uke's got to call him or something like that, or he has to send him, this crazy text that gets, Tech to show his personality and a little bit of a wacky reaction as well. But I think that'd be funny too, especially if they did like, interesting jokes back and forth. You text like knock knock, and then Tech and him go back and forth of who's there. But we're making segments to make this season even more fun for the Sox and for the NESN booth. We got to start pitching this stuff. But
We gotta, let's do it.
but we're going to get more into Corey Kluber's first start, as well as touch on a little bit of Matt Barnes' comments after joining the Marlins, talking about the Sox. But before we do that, I just want to take a second to talk to you about FanDuel. So we're at the midway point of the NBA season, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. Also, look into maybe some futures of the Sox winning the World Series, Sox making the playoffs. Those odds are probably pretty good right now. So before they get hot, maybe try and lock them in. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets with a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Now, looking sort of at Corey Kluber's first start in a Red Sox uniform and in spring training, this was one that I was very intrigued to see how Kluber ultimately was able to perform. Obviously, only going 2 innings and not, using his full repertoire or really putting full effort into this start. But he's going to be a critical point for this rotation, probably looked at as, the number 2 in this rotation, veteran arm, somebody who's looking to bounce back after a little bit of a struggling season last season with the Rays, but it was nice to see him go 2 innings, 2 hits, and striking out 1.
Yeah, it could have gone much worse, right? It could have been a disaster for Kluber, but it wasn't. And I think that his first start in spring training, his first start with the new team, it went about as good as you could have hoped. And it's something that, he needs to build toward too. So I do have high expectations for Kluber. We know the kind of pitcher he can be. And much like other players that have been signed to the Red Sox this offseason, it's somebody that I was like, I would have loved this move 5 years ago when he was in his prime or just at the peak of his kind of career. But it was, no walks. I think that's always encouraging, no matter how small your start is. I think it's when you're not giving up walks, that's huge. The Red Sox did have a lot of issues with that last year. So it was fine. I'm content with the start. I'm excited to see him go longer as spring training progresses. And hopefully he can just keep building off that and translate this into, 4 innings the next time and then 6 innings and hopefully get him up to speed with the Red Sox and get him on the mound, because this team needs their pitching to be on its best game this regular season.
And it was nice to see too that, he did throw all of his pitches, was able to work on different things that maybe he doesn't work on a regular basis, and especially in game speed, a game setting. I think that's really critical for a lot of these guys, especially, throughout the offseason. They probably do live up at bats in a lot of just throwing sessions, but they don't get to be in that real game atmosphere, have those situations in the back of their mind. Also be able to work with some of the new catchers that they haven't worked with, in a while. Obviously, in some of these bullpen sessions that they've done early on in spring training, that's great to be able to get that rapport with the catcher, but at the same time, being able to communicate in game and get that stuff down pat prior to opening day, I think is critical as well.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. It's critical, and that's what's going to be really important going the rest of the way in spring training, to get your stuff sorted out, get your pitches ready, get your mind right, because this is a big year for pitchers. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get from a lot of these guys, and he's one of them. So I'm excited to see how the rest of the spring training goes for him, where he kind of ends up in the rotation as well, because that opening day starter is anyone's. It's up for grabs. It's not just automatically Chris Sale's. So we could see Corey Kluber on the mound opening day. That'd be wild. I think it's, at the end of the day, I think Chris Sale will be the favorite, so to say, to get that. But if Kluber keeps impressing, I'm excited to see where he'll end up in this 5-man rotation, 6-man rotation, whatever they decide to go with. So good for Kluber. It's a good start. It's a positive start, and hopefully it just keeps going in this direction for him.
And another aspect that he brought up, and this is one thing that I hadn't fully thought about, is just getting back into that 5-day routine.
Yeah.
That's one thing, it sort of goes into my last point of just getting back in the swing of things. But, that's one thing that you don't always think about that's critical for some of these pitchers is just being able to get in that 5-day cycle, being able to, get back in that mindset of knowing that you have to get the ball the fifth day and be on your A game, and also to be able to get back into your recovery sort of routine and everything like that. And one thing that I just thought about that I'm curious to see is, obviously we heard last year Nathan Eovaldi being a sort of mentor for Brian Bayo, obviously Pedro as well. But I think now having some veteran guys like Paxton, Sale, and Kluber in the rotation with even guys like Pavetta, who are seasoned, but like might not know everything, you know what I mean? And so like they have that experience of being dominant on the mound when it matters most. And I feel like Whitlock is another guy that you could throw into that barrel of somebody who could learn a lot from some of these, seasoned veterans.
Yeah, I mean I feel like you can never have too many veterans on the team. So I think that that's always good and it's always like a positive thing. And when you have people who have been, in Cy Young conversations, who have been good enough to be considered for those kinds of conversations, is always a positive thing. And someone like Bayo, I mean, yes, he's working with Pedro. Like that's an incredible mentor. I feel like if you're working with Pedro, you're set for life. But when you have someone in game, maybe you can go to and you have somebody that you can talk to. And you talked about, that 5-day routine. And we've talked to pitchers on this show where, kind of going back from starter to reliever, like how does that kind of mess up your mental game? And it's the preparation. It's the
Right.
not knowing, am I going to prepare to be a reliever? Because my preparation is very different from being a starter to being a reliever. So not that I don't think Kluber has that, he doesn't have that to worry about, but getting into that routine is just so crucial for him, for any pitcher. And especially, the guys like Tanner Houck and Garrett Whitlock, when he gets back to, being prepared to get back with his team, you wonder, if they're preparing right now to be starters. And is that going to change? Is that going to change, tomorrow? Are they going to have a decision in 2 weeks where Alex Cora says, you know what, Tanner Houck, you should go in the bullpen, or Whitlock, I know we talked about you being a starter, but let's start you in the bullpen and let's just, let's keep you in the bullpen, and which would be music to my ears. But it makes you wonder, how they're preparing now. Is this going to change when the season starts? Because like I said, we've talked to these pitchers where they say that it's difficult to not really know what your role is, because then your routine is all sorts of messed up.
Right. Exactly. And we've talked about those defined roles. And I think especially being able to get those down pat early on is so critical just for these guys mentally preparing, physically preparing. Obviously, we saw how that hindered, Whitlock and Houck as well. And, when I had Jem McCaffrey on 2 days ago, I alluded to potentially Whitlock's injury being due to that, being thrown into being a starter and only working up to being a bullpen arm. And, she sort of agreed with me that definitely could have played a factor into it. So I think that's something that, they definitely got to keep in their mind. But, we don't make the decisions, the Sox do.
We
So,
do not.
and that brings us to our next, point of conversation is, one player that we were surprised more than any. And, we got, an instant reaction right on this show was when Matt Barnes got DFA'd. And, he spoke for the second time. I was going to say the first time, but he spoke on, Jared Carrabis's podcast about the whole situation. But, really speaking to, Miami or Boston media, specifically about the Red Sox, he said, I'm not mad and don't have any animosity towards the Red Sox organization because that organization represents so much more than who's currently running it. The people at the top were so great to me. And I thought that, the part of that quote that was interesting and that a lot of people are pointing at is that the organization represents much more than who's running it. And a lot of people are like, is that a slight at Chaim Bloom? But at the same time, Bloom's the one who dished out the money to him for an extension.
Well, that's the thing. Like, he got the extension from Chaim Bloom, and it's been reported out there that Chaim Bloom was a big fan of Matt Barnes, and it was no surprise that he was the one who got that extension when he did. So it doesn't. I mean, I'm taking this as he doesn't have any animosity. It is what it is, and he's getting an opportunity now with a new team. But people are saying, it's not a good look for Barnes. It's this and that. His time with the Red Sox is over. And it makes you wonder, like, is he the only one who kind of feels that way, where it's the organization is represented by more than who's running it. And yes, it could be a slight at Chaim Bloom because and the ownership, because he was DFA'd. He was ultimately, he was supposed to be the closer of this team, and they just we've talked about that a lot. He just couldn't get it together after being so dominant. But he's saying how he feels, and I wonder if others feel that way in that clubhouse that are currently in the clubhouse. But I mean, whatever. He's gone now, and he can speak whatever. He can speak his mind, and
Right.
he can be mad about not being part of a team that he helped in 2021 that has gave him that extension, gave him the chance. And I mean, I'd feel the type of way too if I were him. But I don't think it's necessarily a slight at Chaim Bloom. I just think it's maybe a shot at ownership in general and just everyone who's I know he said the people at the top were good to me, but it's hard to kind of separate who's running it, the people at the top, like
Right.
I know I get what he's saying, but maybe
I
he
would have
doesn't.
said,
Maybe he doesn't
give
want
me
to
your
say too much.
hierarchy.
Right,
Who's at the top, and who are you talking about that runs the organization?
right. Like 1 through 10, go, or like on a scale of 1 through 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, he's gone now from the organization. Grateful for his time here and what he was able to do when he did it. So I mean, it is what it is. The Marlins and the Red Sox play this summer, so that'll be fun to see if he gets the opportunity to pitch and kind of his whole season as a whole. Like, is he going to be able to kind of reinvent himself in Miami?
I hope so. And, I think a lot of these sort of initial comments right after a player gets traded or gets DFA'd, sort of a Matt Barnes' situation, there's a lot of overanalyzation of every single word of some of these quotes, trying to find a way to spin it maybe in a negative way or point at a certain guy like Chaim Bloom. Maybe he's, slighting him and sort of pin people together. But I feel like, this is just the reality of it. We're never going to know exactly who, potentially Matt Barnes was slighting or who he wasn't. You know what I mean? That's just up for assumption. And Matt Barnes is the only person who could ultimately obviously tell us that. And, one thing that I also thought about as well is, a lot of times we look at the people who are running it as just specifically one name in Chaim Bloom. But John Henry, I think, said it best. And there's not a lot of times where we quote him on here, but he said, the baseball operations department in general, it isn't just Chaim Bloom. It's a full collective sort of group. And, there's not only the main four people who are at the top of the head of baseball operations. Obviously, Chaim Bloom is the chief baseball officer, and he's the one who gets looked at for all these different decisions and vetoes and agrees or accepts. But at the same time, I feel like it's not specifically talking about one specific person, and we'll never fully know who he's talking about. But I did think it was interesting that 2 days ago he had the option to go home before the Marlins played the Red Sox, and he took it. He said that I'm not going to stick around for the game against the Sox. I'll be buddy when we play them in June. I thought that was interesting. For myself, I would have gotten out of the way early on in spring training when things are a little bit loose, when things don't matter, rather than in the smack dab of the regular season. But maybe you want some time to just be able to let the air clear and not allow any of the drama or the BS to sort of, get in the middle of him being buddy or reconvening with some of his favorite teammates.
Yeah, I have no issue with it. He wanted to go home. He wanted to do whatever, be with his wife, his family, and get ready for the next day of spring training. Good for him. People love saying baseball is a business, and that's it. He was done for the day and he went home. So that's what I do. I'm done for the day. I go home and I do what I have to do at home and get ready for the next day. So I mean, he'll see them in June, like he said. I'm sure he still has relationships with other players on the Red Sox organization, but that's not his team anymore. And he's going to put himself first and get himself prepared to bounce back with the Marlins and hopefully give them a serviceable pitcher. But he said he'll see them in June, and this is work. Work is work. Leave work at work, and he'll see them over the summer and catch up with them then.
Yeah, I agree. And it's always so easy just to look into these sort of different things and make your different assumptions. But you brought it up with baseball being a business and just packing up when you want to. I don't know if you saw it was the Orioles and Pirates game. I don't know if you saw that game at all. It was 2 days ago, and essentially what ended up happening was going into the bottom of the ninth. It was deemed as final, and then the umpires just were okay with just ending the game there. We're walking off the field, and the Orioles and Pirates ended up still playing the bottom of the
Yep.
ninth, and the announcers were calling balls and strikes. And I saw this from Jared Carrabba's tweeting it, but all I thought is the game should just be played like this all the time. This is fun to watch.
I say that's fun, right? And it just kind of shows too, like you can have this kind of fun in spring training. It's loose and people just want to play. And it's a lot of fun. And baseball's fun at the end of the day. And this is their this is their job. This is the players' jobs that they do for a living. So you have to make it fun while you can. Can't do that in the regular season. It'd be awesome if you could. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff you just like to see. It's fun, it's loose, and it just kind of brings a good vibe to spring training because like we've said 100 times, these games don't matter. So just let the kids have fun.
And the other thing too is, you got to hear the announcers, strike calls, ball calls, strike three calls.
Right.
I was an umpire, 10 some odd years ago when I was younger, and I always tried to emulate the strike three or like have all these like crazy different strike three calls because you always see some guys like spin around. Everybody has their different little thing with the strike three, but it'd be fun to do that. If I was an announcer in that situation and I got that opportunity, it's a once in a lifetime thing to be the umpire and also the announcer of a game.
Oh yeah, you gotta have fun with it. You gotta do what you gotta do and make sure that as much as they're having fun on the field, that you're having fun, bringing this kind of product to fans. And maybe that's how you get somebody enamored with baseball. Maybe that's just something like you said, maybe a once in a lifetime thing. So just have fun with it, and you get to act as umpire, broadcaster, color commentator. So I love when fun is being had.
And we're going to continue to be having fun on this podcast, speaking about the Sox, leading up to the season. And one thing to look forward to over the next few days. Thursday, Tanner Houck is going to be on the rubber. Then we see James Paxton for the first time in a Red Sox uniform pitch off of the mound on Friday. I'll actually be at that game, so I'm going to be, over analyzing everything. But I'm going to be able to give you, I guess, firsthand sort of comments from what I saw from James Paxton when he takes the rubber. But it was nice to also hear what Alex Cora sort of said about Paxton, saying, he's a ball player now. We don't talk about his elbow or his arm or anything like that. It's only baseball talk. He's right where he needs to be right now.
Exactly. That's the thing. Like he's here. He's here now, and what we're going to focus on is getting him ready for opening day and getting him prepared to be a player for the Boston Red Sox. Yes, of course, we're going to sit here and wonder how his injuries will impact him, if he'll be able to bounce back. But it's just a matter of past is the past. We're focused on 2023, and let's see what he can do.
Exactly. And, I'm super excited to, be down in the Fort Myers atmosphere, be able to, feel that Red Sox are back type of energy outside of, just feeling that energy through my phone. But I'm going to do my best while I'm down there to bring that energy through the microphone and through this podcast to help give you some glimpse. Maybe I won't be able to, exude some warmth from being down in Florida, but I'll try my best. Maybe I'll talk to some scientists, see if we can make that happen through a phone or a screen or something like that. But we're going to continue to keep you posted about everything that's going on about the Sox 5 days a week. So make sure to subscribe on YouTube or whatever audio platform that you listen to. We greatly appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make your second listen and check out Locked On Fantasy Baseball. Win your league by listening to Matt and Dom every day as they bring you the best fantasy draft strategies. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball wherever you get your podcasts and over on YouTube. Also, make sure to follow us over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Myself, it's at Jake Iggy. And also Lauren, it's La. 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But we hope that everybody has a great rest of their week. Also a great weekend as well. Talk to you guys later. We'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox. Peace.